Good morning and a very happy Earth Day to you all. My name is Ryan McPherson. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer here at the University at Buffalo. Welcome and thank you for joining us as we provide an update on the climate action work here at the university over the past year. Before we get going, a few technical pieces regarding the webinar platform. We welcome your questions, of course, and we'll answer these in the second half of our event. So if you want to put those in the Q&A tab that you see down below, not the chat, and just click on that and we'll process those as well. So our program today is in 4 parts. First, we'll hear from Provost Scott Weber, who will provide kind of context for our conversation and a big picture overview of the progress that we've made really over the last year since we launched UB's 10 and 10 climate action plan. We'll then hear sprint kind of 2-minute updates from our captains, our Get It Climate Action Plan captains, leaders, who will provide highlights of the work occurring in their committees and across the campus. And they are the heart of this work. And we have so much gratitude to all of the contributions and leadership that they've provided. We're then going to try something a little different. We know everyone has SZBF, I'm told, severe Zoom fatigue at this point in the pandemic, and that many of you have not been on campus for quite some time. So to remedy this, a few of our fantastic student sustainability leaders have agreed to take us live out in the field for some breaking climate actions occurring across the university. This will be followed by a discussion across the panel and direct questions from you. Again, please submit those in the Q&A tab below. So as we begin our conversation today, it's only fitting that we acknowledge the land upon which the University of Buffalo operates, which is the territory of the Seneca people, a member of the Haudenosaunee Six Nation Confederacy. Today, this region is still home to the Haudenosaunee people, and we are incredibly grateful for the opportunity to live, to work, to play, and to share ideas in this beautiful territory. It's also fitting for us to recognize what else is happening today. President Biden has unveiled his plan to cut the United States carbon emissions by over 50% by 2030 in front of a delegation of national leaders. This, along with the infrastructure bill and so many other federal actions, is a game changer. And it's reaffirming this country's leadership and potential in addressing one of the greatest challenges of our time. In addition to President Biden bringing in leaders from all over the world to discuss strategy and chart a course for mitigation and adaptation, much like we are doing with leaders across the university today. So it's my great honor to introduce our university's Provost, Scott Weber. In addition to providing critical leadership over the past year and leading UB through the COVID pandemic, he is also someone who is deeply committed, as I know many of you know, to the issue of environment and climate change. He understands the value of science, the fragility of life, and the importance of how decisions deferred can really create dire consequences for present and future generations. Scott, thank you for joining us today and for all the work that you, the President, Vice President Hubbard, and others are doing to advance our climate action work. Scott, can you hear me?
I can. I'm
All
sorry.
right, super.
I said, Ryan, I wanted to thank you so much for convening us today and for all the work that our great teams have been doing over this last year and well beyond that. I want to welcome all of our participants that are with us. Exactly 1 year ago today, on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, UB formally launched our new climate action plan, which we call 10 and 10, to achieve climate neutrality within the next decade. 10 and 10 is a roadmap of 10 innovative and digestible steps that we're taking to increase climate action throughout the university and put us on a path to net zero emissions by 2030. It's a very ambitious plan, but one that we know that we can achieve. These steps form a framework for our implementation efforts, with each of the 10 categories corresponding to a working group chaired by a climate captain that is advancing action within this area. Certainly at UB, we recognize the economy of our region, nation, and the world, and the quality of our lives are increasingly tied to how we develop and deliver energy and manufacture products, how we use and sustain our natural resources, and how human activities alter and impact our environment. We understand sustainability is something intertwined with the very essence of what a public research university is. It directly places our operations, our research, and our curriculum and engagement with our local and global communities. At UB, we've really long been committed to environmental sustainability, from the origins of the environmental movement of Love Canal to today's really innovative sustainability efforts across campus from our captains and working groups, including constructing, as we saw in the opening video, new solar arrays on the North Campus, adding EV charging capacity on the North and South campuses, implementing heat pump infrastructure and building rehabs to transition off fossil fuel heating sources, increasing food composting efforts with the new One World Cafe, and so much more, as you'll hear about today. It's very exciting work. And this work really has gained extensive national attention in recent years. You probably saw it already, but earlier today it was announced that the 2021 Times Higher Education Impact Rankings rate UB as the #1 university in the world taking urgent action to combat climate change. In addition, it's not often you get to be #1 and #2, but in addition, UB was ranked #2 in ensuring access to affordable and sustainable energy. And just last week, the New York Department of Environmental Conservation honored us with their Environmental Excellence Award. Obviously, the last year has been challenging, but the pandemic has made it clear that all of us are capable of making changes and sacrifices for the greater good of the community. Similarly, UB's decades of sustainability accomplishments have arisen from our commitment to protecting the greater good and ensuring a bright and healthy future. And as a longtime faculty member at UB focused on improving the quality of our environment, I could not be more proud of UB's historic legacy of achievement in environmental sustainability. If we continue to work together as the university, I am so confident that we can achieve our ambitious goal of reaching climate neutrality by 2030. Thanks to all of you. Thanks each and every one of you that are on the call with us, our captains, our leaders across campus, our students, the whole campus community for your interest in sustainability and joining us for today's conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Provost Weber, for your leadership and support in this work. So we're now going to hear from our key leaders who are at the heart of our climate action work with very brief high-level updates of what's occurred over the past year and what the plans are moving forward in those areas. Each of these leaders chairs one of 10 working groups with a great committee of staff, faculty, and students who are not only thinking through strategy, but really rolling up their sleeves and advancing the implementation. In addition, when we established our plan, we had many conversations around diversity and inclusion, and we purposefully chose not to create a separate whole committee for that, and instead wanted to integrate and weave that through the very fabric of each of the committees and their work. In addition to the progress that they're going to mention, one of the first achievements was actually establishing the committees themselves, which was making sure that we had the right representation and people on those groups. So to get us started, We're going to start with our university controller, Beth Corey, who runs the Put a Price on Pollution, also known as carbon pricing. As we say, we don't say the T words, not carbon taxing, but carbon pricing. Beth.
Thanks, Ryan. Carbon pricing it is. So our team has been doing a lot. Putting a price on carbon is something new to us. It's new to many of our colleagues within higher education. So as you might expect, one of our first tasks was to do a deep dive and fact gathering. We've taken all the information that we've gathered. We're starting to do our due diligence, creating our own in an effort to create our own carbon pricing system here at UB. We've held a number of in-depth sessions with individuals across higher education. We spoke with Casey Pickett, who oversees internal carbon pricing at Yale. Their system is focused primarily on buildings. We then spoke with Corey Hockey at Arizona State University. He runs a carbon pricing system associated with air travel. And finally, we spoke with Alex Braun of Smith College. He was an incredible subject matter expert for us. In fact, just a few days after our call with Alex, he was appointed to work on carbon pricing for President Biden in the Office of Management and Budget. All of these sessions have started to formulate our carbon pricing system. So those combined with the DEC's new draft carbon pricing guidelines have provided us with a good foundation for building our system. We're also working with our graduate students. Professor Nick Rakovic's Sustainability Practices Graduate Studio is providing some great information to us. They're going out and determining policies. They're looking at best practices and formulating a final report for us. So our team in the future looks forward to continuing to work with that graduate studio. I'm highly confident that their final report is going to be the foundation for our strategy moving forward. In addition, I'm confident that the best practices that we learned in the areas of buildings and air travel, as well as information and tips and rolling out of these initiatives that we gained from Alex are going to help formulate our strategy as we move forward, as well as into the not so distant future and rolling out some templates for us to consider on campus.
Thanks so much, Beth. Appreciate all of your work and the committee's work. Next, over to Bill McDonald, Associate Vice Provost for Academic Planning, and Bill heads up the investing locally to provide flexibility, or kind of otherwise known as offsets.
Thank you, Ryan. Our work this past year has focused on establishing a system that the university can leverage to offset up to 15% of our campus-based emissions. Here, we're really focused on those things where it's impossible or impractical to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, things like air travel. Like Beth's group, we've also been doing a lot of educating ourselves through direct meetings and presentations from the new Higher Education Offsets Network that Second Nature coordinates. This work has the potential of blending our need to purchase local offsets with faculty research and experiential learning opportunities for our students, as well as decreasing the certification cost. We also wanted to make an immediate impact directly with our campus community, faculty, staff, and students, and alumni by enabling individuals to garner offsets by leveraging the green offset platform, UCapture. UCapture is a free web browser extension that gets retailers to donate to carbon offset projects selected by the shopper whenever a buyer makes an online purchase from one of more than 30,000 participating sites. There's a UB Now story on UCapture, and we hope that you can reference that after our webinar. And finally, as Beth referenced, we have really enjoyed our partnership with Professor Rakovich's Sustainability Practices Graduate Studio, and they're providing great research and recommendations and helping us think through our next steps. Like Beth, we know that their work is going to be the foundation of our committee's work, and it's been great to engage with the students and faculty in that way. As we look to the future, in addition to leveraging the studio's work, we'll be looking for ways to increase participation with UCapture and investigate the potential to use this for direct university purchases. The thrust of our future work will be investigating specific opportunities to establish a holistic offset program that will most likely be a combination of on-campus and in the community efforts. More to come on those. Thanks, Ryan.
Bill, thanks so much, and a huge shout out to Nick and the students for both the work that Bill and Beth just mentioned. We're so excited to see those final reports. Now over to Mark Holdren, Associate Vice President for Human Resources, and flip the switch, which is a fancy way of saying culture change and really behavior change, if you will. Mark?
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning, everybody. First, a real quick shout out to Ryan and his team, Aaron, and all the students that have helped. It's been really terrific for our group to have that kind of resource. And also, as I look around all the folks who are on the Zoom meeting, a lot from our division in finance administration and our boss, Laura Hubbard, who really makes this an everyday thing for us. So it's really been a lot of fun to do. As Ryan said, we're focused in on behavior, what people actually do. So what's really important for us is, yeah, you can talk about turning a light switch off, but there's a lot about creating the kind of work environment and culture that we have that sees this as a priority every day for everyone. And it's a little bit different than like other groups that are focused on technology. For us, it's about what we do and the behaviors that everybody on campus will undertake every day when they come into work. So we have kind of three parts of our strategy that we're really focusing on. One, we're looking at building energy through behavior change. In other words, what we do in the buildings as we go in and work and teach and do research and interact together. Secondly, we want to be able to say, if we look at that behavior, there might be some parameters or policies that we could put in place that would reinforce that culture change. It's very important for us. An excellent organization is a compliant one. So when you build policies for those things, we help figure out how we want to change that behavior across the campus. And third, we want to be able to use the technology that we can track different behavior changes to help us look at how we do things. And we can get feedback from the community to drive some of these efforts to get people to look at this as a priority. The events of the past year and what we've all had to go through with the pandemic have been kind of an interesting part of our work recently. As you know, there have been different folks who come to campus, whether you are identified as essential or you came in for different aspects. And it allowed us to really look where those people were using something like the daily health check. And then we could look at the buildings that were actually spending more money in terms of energy and start to compare where people are. We talked a lot about density. So this is a real way to kind of use what we've learned in the past year to see where it can help us think about future behavior change. As we think about the things that we want to look to as a group moving forward, we want to continue to look at this kind of policy development, look at the energy data, and really kind of come up with a way of looking at all of our buildings on campus. What's the behaviors in those buildings, and how can we help people kind of drive to the point where this is a priority every day? Thanks, Ryan.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark. So much potential with that work. Next over to Christina Hernandez, Interim Vice President for Student Life. And Christina is chairing our Taking Stock of Our Food. A little known fact, this is a huge area of climate that we're all starting to pay a lot more attention to. And Christina, thank you for your leadership.
Thanks, Ryan. As Ryan shared, we're all having the privilege to work with a great team of faculty, staff, and students, and they're bringing such great expertise to the discussions we're having. And I've had the opportunity to learn that 25% of our individual carbon footprint comes from the food we consume every day. And for an institution like UB, we think this might be an even bigger percent of our footprint. Over the past year, our committee has made good progress in starting to create a baseline of current conditions of our carbon footprint, working closely with our campus dining and shops partner. For the first time, we are going through every single purchase that campus dining and shops has made and working to equate a carbon emission number to those purchases, and then rolling that up to get a total food footprint. This work is very hard and complex, and we're leveraging the work of our peers at RIT and Cornell to help us as we factor this all in together. We are hopeful that in the next month, we will have UB's first food carbon baseline, and that we will work to refine and evolve this because we can't manage what we can't measure. We think it would be nice for the campus to not only understand the price of the food and the calorie count of what they're consuming, but also the carbon footprint. In addition, and because the weather will hopefully start cooperating with us, we're going to be working to advance the campus garden in its new location, and we'll be planting soon. And as we move forward, we will be working to assess consumer behavior on where we can make some changes to eating habits in regard to greenhouse gases. And so as we think about our menu options, we'll think about more plant-based options like the Impossible Burger instead of beef. We'll also be working to assess procurement practices to see what products could be swapped out for more local and sustainable third-party verified products.
Thanks so much, Christina. Thanks to you and thanks to the leadership at CDS. Just been doing some great stuff in this area. Chris Austin, Director of Parking and Transportation, is our next speaker. And Chris is so important, he chairs two groups that we've merged into one, greening our commute and electrifying our fleet. Chris?
Thank you, Ryan, and good morning, everyone. With the transition in our electricity sources to renewable ones, our mobility emissions have now become the largest sector of carbon on our campus. Commuting alone from students, faculty, and staff account for a whopping 35% of UB's current carbon footprint. Our committee focusing on these two items is actually made up of two parts, greening our commute with faculty, staff, and students, and electrifying our own UB fleet. And we've made some good progress over the past year on both fronts. 2 months ago, we announced the completion of a new charging infrastructure on the North and South campus, which expands our current charging infrastructure by 500%. We also introduced a new EV charging permit and pricing policy that provides an incentive to use electric vehicles while also helping raise funds to maintain and increase greater EV infrastructure and adoption and use on campus. Tying into that, we're also exploring a potential partnership with NYPA, the New York Power Authority, and establishing UB's first fast charge station that would be based on our South campus. And in addition, we've been evaluating UB's current decentralized fleet and are working with National Grid to assess how to transition this over to electrification in a smart, coordinated fashion across departments that maintain fleets on behalf of the university. Looking forward to the future, we have delved into the future of mobility at the university over the past year plus with initial dialogue with the community regarding emerging mobility offerings, including electric scooters and electric bicycles, and whether they have a place within our suite of service offerings for the campus. Finally, much of our time has been working through how we can transition our current fleet of diesel buses over to electrification. We currently have 28 diesel-powered buses that operate and serve the UB Stampede service. It operates in upwards of 50,000 service hours each year, using 150,000 gallons of fuel. So a tremendous opportunity for us to decrease our impact and footprint by transitioning those over. But at the same time, it is certainly a complicated process that we're working through as a committee, as it requires additional capital for the technology, and also thinking about the new maintenance, logistics, and operational considerations, again, in addition to several other factors. So we have a lot of great work going on, and we're excited as a committee to continue it and continue advancing these efforts.
Thanks so much, Chris. Such a huge area of our emissions, and you're doing such great work with the larger team. Thank you. Our next area, Tricia Candler, who's the Director of Facilities and Building Procurement within Procurement Services. We call this the Waste Not Group, which really focuses on our materials and whatnot. Tricia?
Good morning. Thank you, Ryan. I did want to extend a thank you out to all of our faculty, staff, and students and alumni for all of your help and assistance as we forge forward. It's been exciting to work on this committee. So let me share what we've been up to. While reducing waste is important sustainability work, did you know that about 40% of our greenhouse gases come from the waste stream in the materials we use? I find that quite interesting. We are using UB strategy to achieve zero waste by 2030 to guide our committee work, which will ultimately include examining UB's purchasing practices, identifying the scope of our waste and hazard materials, creating zero waste standards, ensuring all usable goods are utilized, establishing infrastructure and education to support zero waste, eliminating our prepared food waste, diverting all organics from our waste system, and eliminating our single-use plastics on campus. Some of the more specific work we've done this past year is working with our UB asset management team in determining best ways to utilize surplus items either on campus or within the greater SUNY system. We did remove recycling over 12.5 tons of electronics from our South Campus buildings to ensure effective space utilization. We're advancing the campus race to zero waste this month to encourage the UB community in zero waste activities, not only on campus, but at home. Excuse me. And what's even more exciting is we're creating a reuse model for professional clothing distribution center on campus to support our students. Hired will collect professional clothing and accessories for the greater UB community, and these items will be available to students at no charge, ensuring that they are ready for interviews, job fairs, and internships. Hired will also be a very safe place for our LGBT community students in obtaining professional clothing. Where are we going? The most exciting steps that we're taking is achieving zero waste with our new One World Cafe. One World Cafe will build upon campus dining and shop's current practice of composting waste and has committed to transitioning its prepared food containers from single-use plastic to compostable materials. This will greatly shift us away from landfill dependence and set the tone for UB to continue to move forward to zero waste. Coming soon, hopefully the winter of 21. Thank you, Ryan.
Tricia, thanks so much. We're next going to go to Tonga Pham, Associate Vice President for University Facilities. Tonga heads up the Keeping It Cozy and Green, which as an engineer, I think she hates that title. What we're really talking about is transitioning our heating and cooling to really non-carbon sources. Tonga also is the co-chair and really helped us create the overall climate action plan, and an immense amount of gratitude to you, Tonga.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been a lot of fun working and developing the 10 and 10 before we kind of announced it last year on Earth Day. So our committee work is really designed to complement Mark's committee around culture change. So we really focus on, as you mentioned, on reducing the second largest sector in UB's footprint, which is the emissions associated with burning natural gas to keep all of us warm on the 3 campuses. So we've been exploring alternative ways to transition away from using fossil fuel-based heating systems. And what we found is the best and most efficient method currently available to us is still electrification. So over the past year, we've been advancing a pilot to move in this direction. And with the complete rehab of Crosby Hall, we will be replacing the existing natural gas system there with electric heat pumps. And on top of that, in addition, we've also been working with partners at NYPA, as well as a Canadian firm known as Zinc 8, to bring UB's first battery storage system onto our North Campus. And that new installation will be placed near the Baker Chilwater plant here, which is also conveniently just a few hundred feet away from our award-winning solar strand, as well as the newly relocated Grow Home, that is our clean energy education center, which kind of provides us with the ability to provide outreach to the K-12 community. And so we're really excited about the initiative, about the energy storage, although it's going to be used to kind of do research on peak shaving. We're looking to partner with NYPA and Zinc 8 to just kind of explore alternative means that we can use it for. So things like backup emergency power in buildings. It'll also give us the opportunity to kind of start looking into the life cycle costs of using alternative energy sources on our campus. And most importantly, it kind of gives our staff the ability to kind of have hands-on experiences with the latest technologies that's out there. So what's the future for this committee? Well, we'll continue to kind of learn from Crosby Hall's work as well as the energy storage to try to find a mechanism to kind of scale up these types of technologies across all 3 campuses.
Tonga, thanks so much. Appreciate that. Along with mobility, when we think about mobility, as Chris talked about, and heating and cooling, 2 huge chunks of emissions that we're working on. Hadar Borden is the director of Blackstone Launchpad, and she chairs or captains the Making It Happen group, which is really about leveraging our students and our faculty as part of this process. Hadar?
Thanks so much, Ryan. Our committee is charged with providing more opportunities for students, staff, and faculty to plug into all of this work, as well as tracking our progress. We started off this year with developing and hosting a greenhouse gas boot camp to our committee, our student clubs, and other on-campus groups. This can be found on our website for anyone to view. In June, there will be a session on sustainability at the Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness Conference that will connect the Sustainable Development Goals to any business to foster taking action on climate. We're working on developing a micro-credential for students that would like to take a deeper dive in climate action work, and one in sustainability will launch this fall. Lastly, this summer, we'll be hosting a 4-week summer design challenge that focuses on these 10 and 10. Students will have the opportunity to learn and work with experts on these 10 strategies and come up with their own creative solutions to these problems. Our future plans are to develop a more targeted way of assessing curriculum to see where we can integrate our climate action work in our academic work. And we're investigating the feasibility of an open data portal for the UB community so that researchers can better use our campus as a learning laboratory. Many thanks and happy Earth Day to everyone.
Thanks, Hadar. I'm so excited about the design challenge for the 10 and 10 with our students coming up right after commencement here in June. So our final group is Not All Electricity is Created Equals, which is really about renewables and clean energy, right? This work is focused on making sure that the type of electricity that we're using is in fact renewable and does not emit greenhouse gases. And it really provides a foundation for a lot of the other work that Tonga and others and Chris and most of the captains have referenced here. We have a long history of work in this space, as Provost Weber mentioned earlier. It has succeeded because it has truly been a campus-wide effort. So our partners in budget, Joe in business, Beth in facilities and procurement and leadership just across the board, including our senior leadership. So we're humbled by the announcements that Provost Weber said earlier today about being the top university in the world when it comes to taking climate action, and specifically #2 for renewables. So over the past 3 years, the university has purchased renewable energy certificates equivalent to our annual electricity usage, thus dropping our overall carbon footprint by a little over 30%. This has been a bridging strategy for us as we've continued to investigate more direct ways to also lower our carbon electricity footprint, such as more projects like we had on the Norton Solar Roof Array, the Solar Strand, and our first offsite agreement at the former Lackawanna Steel site. So as part of our Localizing Buffalo's Renewable Energy Future initiative with Erie County, Buffalo State College, and SUNY Erie Community College, we broke ground on several different new solar arrays on campus earlier this year that Allison's going to talk about in a second. And we're currently in construction right now across the campus, as you have no doubt seen if you've been on campus. As we move forward, construction with the new on-campus solar array will be complete by this fall, including some rooftops there as well. And in addition, we'll also be issuing a very large offsite RFP, request for proposals, with the county, Buffalo State College, and SUNY Erie in the next couple of weeks, which we are excited about, and that will move us to 100% of directly supplied renewable energy as we continue on this journey. So I just want to close this section by thanking our captains for their outstanding work. I think you can see how much work has been occurring in these and all the members of those committees who are really taking it to the next level. I'd also like to just remind our audience, I'm seeing a few questions in there already. If you have questions, please drop them into the Q&A. And now we're gonna have a special treat here. We'll try to move a little bit beyond Zoom. We want to bring some of the actions that were talked about by our captains from our students who are live out in the field, if you will. So Derek, if you could screen share that, and we'll first go to Allison, who's going to tell us a little bit about our campus solar construction. Allison, are you there?
If you haven't been to campus in a while, you're going to notice some big things taking place. We have a massive solar array coming to campus on the eastern edge, just behind Alumni Arena and right at the recreation field. It's going to be 25 acres and it's going to have 16,500 solar panels on it once it's completed. This solar array is going to produce about 8 million kilowatt hours of energy in year one, which is about equivalent of offsetting the usage of 1,300 homes. But that's not the only thing. We have another solar array coming that's going to be over on the western side by the Creekside Village Apartments and on some of the rooftops over there. Once this project is completed, UB is going to rank at one of the top universities in generating on-site solar energy among higher education. This Earth Day, we're ramping up renewables. Back to you, Ryan.
Well, thanks, Allison. And yesterday's snow kind of has obviously made our live shots not look so live anymore, because there would have been a little bit of mud and a little bit of snow out there. So give us some creative license on this on the technology side. We're next going to go to Madeline. Madeline is over at Crosby Hall talking about our carbon heating and cooling. Madeline?
Thanks, Ryan. Heating and cooling our campus takes a lot of effort, money, energy, and yes, carbon. Transitioning from fossil fuels is hard, but we are making progress and learning a lot from the building behind me. As Tonga mentioned earlier, Crosby Hall represents a new way of heating and cooling our buildings. Instead of burning natural gas, Crosby is being equipped with a series of heat pumps which extract heat from the air outside, transfer it to refrigeration coolant, and then compress it, which increases the temperature significantly. The coolant is then moved to the indoor unit of the heat pump, which passes air over the hot coolant, which then heats the building. Thus, we are heating more efficiently and switching the source from natural gas to electricity, which is produced from renewable sources like Allison just reported on.
Thanks so much, Madeline. Madeline and the Engineers for a Sustainable World are actually hosting the national conference, virtually hosting here, but UB is the host of that. So thank you, Madeline, for that. Next, we're going to go to Nitra. Nitra is over at some of the EV chargers that Chris was talking about earlier. Nitra?
As Chris indicated earlier, about 35% of UB's current carbon footprint comes from the commuting that our student, faculty, and staff do. As we have seen a drop in this number this year because of remote working, but we expect this number to kick back up again as people start returning to campus. This is why we're employing a host of strategies, including mass transit, remote working, and active mobility. But one form of commuting that we want to encourage is electric vehicle commuting. This is because electric vehicle commuting can help decrease emissions dramatically. But one of the hesitancies people have with this form of commuting is the dreaded range anxiety. This is why UB has increased our campus's charging capacity by 500% by installing 30 new plugs on 15 chargers like these ones behind me. We have seen a steady growth in electric vehicle drivers. Currently, there are about 450 on campus, and we expect this number to increase in the coming years. All these drivers have to do is register their vehicle, plug in, and charge.
Okay, thanks, Nitra. Matt is over at One World Cafe and is going to reinforce some of the pieces that you heard about earlier. Matt?
One of the many setbacks that COVID-19 has caused has been the increase in waste created, especially when it comes to single-use plastic through food takeout containers. That's why we're very excited about UB's next approach to zero waste with this construction project behind me. When One World Cafe opens in 2022, Campus IN shops will not only continue their practices of composting, but also changing their current single-use plastics to compostable materials. This is a great way for UB to continue our efforts to zero waste across the entire campus.
Great, thanks, Matt. And now we have Cam, who's going to over at the battery, where the battery storage will be, the Tonga referenced earlier.
I'm standing in the middle of this field, and it doesn't look like there's much happening. However, this is a pretty strategic location because it's right in between the UB solar strand and the Baker chilled water plant, which is one of North Campus's main utility buildings. This will be the site of UB's first battery storage products that Tonga spoke about earlier. We're excited to launch this project from Zinc 8. This project will help us supply a more constant supply of electricity from projects like the solar strand, but perhaps more importantly, level out peaks in demand during times of high-grid use. Leveling out these peaks is important because during these times of high-grid use, the price of electricity is dramatically higher. And the more we can flatten the curve, the greater the savings of both dollars and emissions. Back to you, Ryan.
Great, and our last one, heading over towards the new Grow Clean Energy Center. Melanie, are you there?
Thanks, Ryan. I'm at the Grow Clean Energy Center at the entrance of UB North's campus. It is probably one of the biggest and first changes you'll see if you haven't been here in a while.
The Garden Relax or Work Home has found its permanent spot on North Campus near the solar strand, leveraging the university's commitment to solar energy and highlighting UB's ability to successfully generate solar power, as well as establish a multifaceted place to invite the community in. It is creating one of the most publicly accessible renewable energy landscapes in the country.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks to the students for doing that. Appreciate all of their work on that. Why don't we move straight to some great questions from the audience. And Tonga, I'm going to throw this first one at you here. How might the shift to electric from natural gas necessitate updates to our heating, ventilating, and cooling systems infrastructure? What's the evaluation process for how this HVAC systems that are outdated and often malfunctioning in older buildings, departments on campus?
Thanks, Ryan. I like how you tee me up first, but a very challenging question. And I don't know if there's a simple answer for this one. So obviously, North Campus as well as South Campus is, getting older. And we recognize the fact that there is going to have to be some significant infrastructure renewal all around HVAC. So what we're hoping to do is obviously kind of start going in phases for many fronts. One, obviously being the financial side, and two, just the ability we need to kind of move certain departments out of their area before we can kind of go in and do any of these significant modification to building infrastructures. So a lot of these things will be over a span of multiple years. Crosby in itself, although construction will start the summer of this year, it won't be complete until almost the start of the fall in 2023. So these things take quite a while for us to do just a single building. And there's a lot of domino effects. So in order to kind of move a unit or a department out, we kind of need a surge space to kind of seat them in while we kind of do all of this type of work. So in terms of criteria, obviously it's a lot easier for us to do buildings that are slated for a complete rehab or a gut rehab, as we like to say. So a lot of those buildings will be mostly on South Campus for the next while. So we have the South Campus revitalization program is well underway, and that's where a lot of the focus will be. Doesn't mean we won't be looking at North Campus and trying to figure out ways to kind of do some updates to certain systems, and it really kind of comes down to that. I mean, most of North was built all around the same time in the early 70s. So it's kind of hard to just say this is what's going to make this one unit kind of trump or be more of a priority than everything else. It's going to be its current condition, how it's functioning, the type of use that we're putting in there, and as well as the financial. So I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to elaborate on your question, and hopefully I can kind of catch it on the second go around.
Thanks, Tonga. I think that's great. And I think Tonga has one of the probably most capital intensive in terms of dollars of all of the 10 areas of the money that's going to be needed for that switch. It's a really big piece, and one that the country as a whole is working on. Our next question is from Professor Thomas. Elizabeth asks, part of greening our commute could be to encourage commuting by means other than passenger vehicle, public transit, cycling, walking. Is the university partnering with surrounding communities to improve safety and ease of access to campus for non-car commuters? So this whole area of active mobility and balancing that with safety. Chris, you have some thoughts on that?
Sure, Ryan. So we have had recent discussions, a subgroup of our committee with the town of Amherst supervisor and their planning department. And it was initially around electric scooters and kind of an initial dialogue on how they might integrate into the town and to the university. And it kind of dovetailed into dialogue on just what you're describing, which is needs for infrastructure from specifically when it comes to students, infrastructure from where students live around the North Campus to access North Campus. So kind of delving into what the next steps are for improving a potential for safety for both bicyclists and perhaps down the line, electric scooters. We've had similar dialogue with the city of Buffalo, but more so on connecting and providing additional bike lanes onto the South Campus. So those conversations continue. And we also continue our dialogue with the NFTA on enhancing and potentially adding in more students into the Cram Pass program that gets students access to bus and rail in the region. So those are kind of the 2 or 3 fronts that we have had current dialogue on in that space, and we'll continue that into the future.
It's great, thank you, Chris. Another question in from Maureen Jameson. So kind of 2 questions here. One, as a Clemens Hall resident, I can vouch for the ferocity of the wind here on North Campus. Any way to harness any of that? And then the second question, is medical waste a focus of any of our efforts? Does it count in our footprint? I'll open that up to everyone here, and Trish, maybe your thoughts on that second one especially, but we have looked a bit at wind on a couple different pieces. The challenge becomes solar is a little bit more palatable to a lot of our community members versus the needed size and breadth of some of the turbines that you get a scale, and the larger they are, the more efficient and effective. That does not mean that we shouldn't continue to look at those, but right now solar has been a little bit more effective, efficient, and the price point actually is better. So balancing all those things, we've tended to go the solar route. On our offsite RFP that's will be going out in the next week, we are open to all of those different options, and it's really whatever comes in at the price point that is most beneficial to the university. Trish, any thoughts on that second one? Is medical waste a focus of any of our efforts? Does it count in our footprint?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Right now, we really have been focusing on our hazardous waste and making sure we've got contracts in place and that's being accounted for properly. Medical waste is on the list. I know that right now, through this pandemic, you're seeing a lot more masks lying around, and is there capability of that being recycled, through our resellers or from our distributors that we buy from? And those are options. It's just the point of getting that information out to end users and getting the boxes in place and such like that. But that is on our list of things that we're targeting and looking at, and hopefully more to come on that one. Thank you for the question.
That's great. Thanks, Tricia. A little bit more of a broader question to any of the captains here. I'm curious if what it is that you're really most excited about with the future of your kind of climate action work within your space. Is there something that you're really looking forward to both personally and professionally kind of exploring a bit more? Any takers on that question?
Yeah,
Mark?
Ryan, there are a couple of things that we've talked about, which I think are cool intersection points. As we talk about things like wellness and people, instead of taking an elevator, taking the stairs, our group began to talk about that behavior change. How can we incentivize people to think about taking the stairs? And some great ideas around how you can make it a part of step challenges. But the other part was the stairways could be more attractive. And so the idea came up, what if we could partner with student artwork or something like that? So that became kind of a cool thing to talk about. And the second one, which was exciting, was really what we've learned around flexibility and how people use their office spaces now. What will that mean for the future? We've learned a lot this last year. So both those things are kind of cool to talk about. One, a recent experience, another one connecting to something that people really, I guess, will kind of appreciate more about is wellness.
That's great, Mark. Thanks. Bill?
I just wanted to add on to what Mark said, because for our group, and I think Beth, for your group too, really, it's been that working with the students and working with Professor Rakovich, and I know that's just one opportunity, but we have a really unique opportunity here at UB where we have the students and the faculty and really engaging from the sort of research and experiential learning side has just been terrific. And honestly, the second part of what I wanted to say was just educating, being able to be educated about sustainability issues and what we as individuals can do, and then how we can bring that back to our offices and ultimately the university and the impact on the community. So it's just been a great opportunity to learn. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Bill. Any others there? Beth?
The only thing that I would add is, I talked about a little bit in the middle of my update, is that carbon pricing is something that's new to higher education. So I think something that's really exciting is that I see us as becoming a leader in this area, especially within New York State. So it's a great opportunity for us to give some exposure to our students early on in becoming a leader, and something that is frankly extremely important to not only our local community, but the world in general.
That's great. Thanks so much, Beth. A question here. I'm guessing this is probably for Tonga, but anyone who are interested. A question from Ryan. Are there any actions being taken on reducing the energy consumption of lighting at university buildings, such as converting fluorescent light fixtures to LED and installing occupancy sensors?
That's a great question. Thank you so much, Ryan, for that one. And the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. So we've made great strides in doing a lot of LED conversions internally as well as externally. So we've done a lot of light poles outside. We're kind of now actually have done quite a bit internal to internal spaces as well, and we're just kind of systematically kind of hitting buildings that maybe are the most high users that are maybe more prolonged during the days. So think like maybe the alumni, and kind of just working through the buildings, in a really methodical way to do the change out.
That's great. Thanks, Tonga. Maybe just have us close out here. Any of the captains who'd like to chime in on this, but we know there are so many challenges in this work, right? I mean, this is just a huge, it's an opportunity, but it is a challenge every day when we think about how to overcome it. I'm curious personally, what is inspiring you with this? What is it that gets kind of that level set where, yep, it can be overwhelming, but wow, this is really fueling me and getting me to that next place. So I'm curious if the captains have any thoughts on that. Yeah, Hadar?
I think we talked a little bit about this before, but it's the opportunity to be in partnership with our students, with faculty, with our entire campus community and external community as well. Oftentimes our students are the ones learning, but in this instance, we're all at the same table, whether it's in Zoom meetings or in person. So that's what's super exciting for me.
That's great. Thank you. Bill, sorry, did you have something you were?
Just to say that the impact that individual actions can have. So yes, it's a university. There's a lot to offset. 15% is our goal, but certainly there's actions that we can take. U-Capture is going to be one that we can see that our daily purchases, things we take for granted and do anyway, can really be used to offset. And then the options of how we commute to campus, how we engage with the campus in ways we can offset. So I think that for me was something that inspires me to keep going because we're doing it individually and as a collective.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to keep us on time here, and just an immense again thank you to our captain. So great to have your perspective with us here on Earth Day, and also to Provost Weber. Scott, thank you so much for your leadership, and Vice President Hubbards and the rest of the team. Most importantly, as Bill just said, thanks to all of you who have joined us today in making this work a priority. The university has made an institutional commitment to achieve climate neutrality, but we also need every single one of our 40,000 member community to do the same. Together, our university and our people, we can make this happen. And I think today's federal action is a reaffirmation of that. So please make sure to subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media, visit the UB Sustainability webpage and the climate webpage that's on that, and find ways to get involved and make a difference with us. So in closing, please be safe, but have a thriving and fun Earth Day. And thank you to you all. Thank you.